This may be the hardest thing I've ever had to write. On Tuesday, June 27th, I checked my messages and heard the words I'll never forget. Evan, this is Lou, Falcon. I'm sorry, but I don't know any other way to say this, so I'll just go ahead and say it. Marlon's dead. They found his body in California. Call me.
Marlon Kalkai, otherwise known as Tiger Khan, was a professional wrestler on the East Coast circuit. According to Jeff Archer, despite his in-ring shenanigans as a bad guy from India, he was the most humble and quiet human being. By 1998, he was the champion of the Pennsylvania Championship Wrestling Organization. Rarely did someone his age wear the belt of a pro wrestling promotion. At age 25, Tiger Khan had all the credentials to go to the top of his career. 1 year after 9/11, I flew to New York City to spend 3 weeks with Evan Ginzburg, editor of the magazine Wrestling Then and Now, and eventually associate producer of Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler. As we shot the documentary that became Wrestling Then and Now, we met Tiger Khan and his parents at their apartment. Tiger Khan was poised for greatness and filled with nothing but gratitude for those who helped him as he introduced the people who helped make his career possible.
These two gentlemen, these two fine gentlemen, are two of the most instrumental people in my career. I consider myself moderately successful, and the two guys outside from my parents that have been so helpful and supportive is number one, my buddy Mike Matarazzo, love you man, and number two, my buddy Evan Ginzburg, Wrestling Then and Now.
Thank you.
My Jewish brother and my Italian brother.
That's it.
Well, and what have they done for you?
Anything and everything that I've ever, I mean, across the board, financial support, just brotherly love. This guy he's so knowledgeable about business, and the principles of business apply across the board in any line of business, and he's been so helpful. And this guy has been so like just supportive of me and who I am, and telling me, on one hand, not making me get a big head, but on the other hand, letting me know what I've had to offer, how different I am, and what I did bring to the business of pro wrestling, because you can get lost in the shuffle. And with this guy and this guy, without these guys, I would have fallen off my path a long time ago. And it's more than, it's just being there, supportive, and just with you all the time. And what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Who are you talking to? Supporting you, but pushing you too, because you need that. You definitely need that support.
What brought you into the world of wrestling? Did you like to watch wrestling when you were a kid, or what happened?
No. Actually, the thing that got me involved in wrestling was my father actually sat me down and forced me to watch it. Being that, he was athletic in his country and he wanted me to be athletic, I wasn't interested in any ball playing games. I wasn't interested in any sports, so the one thing he had control over was that TV. So one weekend he forced me to sit down and watch wrestling a Saturday morning. And he just continued to do that and forced me. I had no interest at all, but he forced me to watch it. And wrestling it's addictive, so that's how I got into it.
Got you going.
My all-time favorite, the one guy who has just been so hilarious and I think inspired me more than anyone else was the Honky Tonk Man. Here it is, 1985-86. A guy dressed like Elvis can't play a guitar, but pretending and he can. People are booing and cursing at him, and he's saying, "Thank you very much, you're a beautiful audience." To me, it was like love. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to go out there and have people hate me and tell them, "Thank you, I love you." This is what got me into wrestling, not the actual wrestling. I've mastered that, but that's not. Yeah, but the show, the entertainment aspect of it. Honky Tonk Man, I love you, man. You're the best.
Were you always this encouraging?
I didn't want him to be in wrestling. I didn't want him at all. His father wanted.
Well, I've always explained to my parents, my mother especially, because she's so emotional and she's so protective. I always explained to her that this is my job. My job is to go out there and piss those people off. And the angrier they get, the better job I'm doing. So I tried to get this to her. As a mother, if you see someone cursing your son, your natural instinct is to, go protect your son. So it took time, but I think now she's getting used to it.
Mother don't like to see the son get beaten up, and he was very persistent. After those 3 or 4 times he got beaten up, and in school try to discourage him. Then he went. We backed him up. I started backing him up. The first time he came home again, he had a little cut or something. His mother was crying, "Don't go back," she's telling me. But he wanted to go back again. Just kept on going. I said, if he likes it, let him beat him up. Because I grew up in the streets and had to be, you have to learn self-defense. You must fight. But the kind of fighting I did, we used fist fight, just your fists, your foot on your head. We used to do headbutts. This guy, I taught him that way because, when he was very young, I think 4 guys attacked him, not far from us, opposite where we live. And that was the reason why I tried to get him interested into some sort of self-defense. But he loved it. He went to college for 2 years. And one day he came, he had he finished high school, he started to go to college, he was doing marine biology. And he came and he told me just like that, he said, "Daddy, I want to fight, I don't want to go to school." I said, "Thank you very much, go ahead. You're saving me a lot of money. Go ahead, do what you want."
But how do you develop a character?
Right. Well, initially, the first year for me, the first 2 years actually, it was because I was so unathletic. I spent the majority of my time getting the basics down. The things that people would pick up in, 2 to 3 weeks were taking me 3-4 months because I wasn't trying to be there for that, but you had to go through it. So the major thing you have to learn in wrestling, the first thing you have to learn is the fall, the back fall, which if you've never done it before is one of the most difficult things because as a human being, you're taught to protect yourself. You brace yourself if you're going to fall. But as a wrestler, you have to let your body fall freely and without trying to prevent yourself from hurting.
So tell me about how you developed your character of Tiger Khan.
My character came about in Calgary. Actually, it started out before here. To make a long story short, I met a friend of mine who we used to train together. We were both, not the wealthiest guys in the world, and what he did was he went into the stock market, came into millions of dollars. He started a wrestling promotion for me, and through that he started bringing stars from all over. And one of the stars he brought was Bruce Hart, who most wrestling fans will know was the brains behind Stampede Wrestling in Calgary, Canada. So Bruce was the one who, told me, he said, if you're ever going to make it in this business, you have to do what the people expect. He said, it may not be you, but you have to give them what they expect. And you being an Indian person have to give them an Indian accent. You have to come down to Indian music. And I was totally opposed to that in the beginning, but then I started seeing, when I started listening to, the more I started listening to this guy, the more I started seeing, wow, this is really flowing naturally, And funny enough is the things that my father was always telling me, get in touch with your roots and have Indian music. And these are things that, I'm an American kid, so I grew up with American culture and I wanted to listen to American music. I didn't realize that if I just used that, that part of who I was, that it would help my career. And that's when it took off. The whole talking with the Indian accent is what I did in Calgary. For 9 months on TV, I talked with an Indian accent, and he would just, shave the edges. He would chisel me down like a sculpture. He'd go out there and he'd give me advice here and there, and it just was so natural. It was me, but it was like him making me relax with who I was.
Have you ever been worried that by doing that you might be kind of underscoring or validating, say, the prejudices of some of the people who might be attending the fights?
See, initially that was my whole thing. I wanted to be different. I wanted to let the people in America and all over the world know that, that don't know Indian people. Okay, there are people that work at 7-Eleven and they talk with this accent and they pump your gas and they're your doctors, but they're also regular people. And that was what I was initially trying to get out. But the thing is that you're not, for the most part, you're better off not trying to change people's mind. You're better off giving them what they expect. And in entertainment, that's what you're really supposed to do. You're not there to change their mind, you're there to give them what they expect.
How do you feel when you go to the shows and the audience is yelling anti-Indian, slurs and things like that? Your son's a heel, he's a villain, he's trying to get the crowd to react, but how do you feel when, they say rude things like that?
It don't bother me. It really don't bother me because that's the way I grew up, you know, by being called names back home. I'm from the West Indies, and that's the way you know, the people are very, you know, that's how they act in that country. So I grew up like that. It don't bother me. They can call me anything. They can tell me anything. It don't bother me. When I was much younger, if I don't like the person who was talking like that to me, we'd have it out. During his fights, I taught him well. Never get mad if people call you names. You don't mean anything. Try to avoid calling other people names also. But sometimes we do use names about other people, but I really don't mean it. That's the goal, let him go.
One of the traditions in wrestling, whether it's good or bad or whatever, is the foreign villain, the foreign heel. It was always Nazis and Russians during the Cold War, etc., etc. If a major promoter were to exploit his nationality and do some kind of you know, gimmick as far as a foreign heel, which theoretically could be dangerous with certain fans, how would you react to that?
It's a chance you're taking. You're going out there in the street, you're on the subway, you're on the buses, you're walking towards the grocery store, anything can happen. This is his life. He's living a life of very, I wouldn't say dangerous, but you know, meeting up with people like those, he has a way of getting over these type of people. You know, he can speak to them. He might just approach them, you know, like if he's going to do something. But somehow they always end up, a lot of villains, a lot of people trying to, you know, at first he thought they didn't like him, they turned out to be his best friends. And he has a way with people.
Crazy fans have attacked wrestlers, stabbed wrestlers. One fan threw acid in Fred Blassie's face, and not everybody's stable. And if you're a successful villain, you know, you incite the audience, which is your job. So, to a certain degree, not as much as in the past, because it's understood that wrestling's a work. It's understood that it's sports entertainment. But you know, you never know. You know, not everybody is stable, and it's you know, there's a certain danger to being in the public eye.
Yes, I know that. I'm quite aware of that. But that's his life. That's his job. I saw people fail from heights, died. I saw people get knocked down too in the street while going to work. But this is, I know the fans, some of the fans are stupid. The smarter ones, the more intelligent ones will just sit down there, relax, enjoy themselves, because it is a sport. And in every sport you gotta be, you know, you shouldn't be trying to hurt anyone or kill an opponent, you know, and the fans should realize that when they see two persons fighting, like two, you know, person like in an arena or something, you know, they should know that this is just like, you know, like entertainment. It may look serious, but it does, to me, wrestling is serious. I like wrestling, and no matter what they say, I know most of it is, you know, is real. But this is such a sport that even if a certain, you know, a strong person holds you into a headlock, he can crack your skull. But talking about the fans, if the fans are trying to hurt you, that's something different. They didn't pay to come to see something, they pay to come to do something. And that is, you know, I hope they do the same thing like they're doing in the airports, trying to frisk these people or let them pass through some sort of, some kind of metal detector or something.
Because of his varied racial and ethnic characteristics, Conley Major, a political activist, dubbed Tiger Khan the Universal Man.
Tiger Khan is first off a great guy. We met almost out of the blue, you know. Another wrestler had said to him, "Go see this guy, he'll take some pictures for you for your publicity shots." And I'll be honest, he came into my studio and I said, okay, you know, whatever. I've gotten to know a few of these independent guys. That was 10 years ago, 8 years?
8 years ago.
About 8 years ago. Did his pitches, and he comes back to me next day and he says, listen, I'm working for an organization. Why don't you, they need a photographer. Come on down. And me and Tiger just clicked right from the beginning. We became buddies, Not just about wrestling, just laughing about everyday things and hanging out and
other people.
Making fun of people, But he's just my buddy, My Indian brother.
Yeah.
My adopted parents over there. I call up on the phone. Hi, Mom, what you doing? Just like that. We
Family.
we just got a connection.
That's it.
And I try to go to every match I can that I watch him, tell him what he did wrong, that he doesn't do it wrong the next time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just when I want to see him, be to the top. Go to WWF and keep hoping that happens.
Well, Tiger, tell me some stories about wrestling, about some of the people that you've wrestled with, surprises that you've had in the ring or whatnot.
Surprises I've had in the ring. There have been a lot of surprises in the ring. In the ring with this guy, he's 60 years old. He looks like a hunchback of Notre Dame. His name is Cuban Assassin, and one of the first times I wrestled him, I remember they put him on the road with us in Stampede in Calgary, and I'm looking at this guy, and if you're looking at me like, oh my God, I don't want to hurt this guy, he's gonna drop dead, so I pick him up and I slam him, and all I heard was, oh, so I said, oh my God, I killed the guy. I said, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna go to jail. I killed this poor man. So I bend down, I'm like, Angel, you alright? Because that's his real name. He's like, yeah, I think I shit. He's, I think he had a thick Cuban accent, and he had a habit of eating sardines before he went in, and I guess he didn't get to deposit the sardines before he got into this match. So the slam and him clinching and it just scared me, but it just to me that was like the story that pops out of my head,
So Jerry Lawler out in Connecticut in the main event a couple months ago. The story I always remember is I went with an old girlfriend to see Tiger wrestle a guy named Typhoon, who's like a 400-pound monster. And Typhoon throws him from the top rope through a table, and my girlfriend was like, oh my God, he's dead, And we were sweating, but he got up. It was no problem. So, it's been a long road. We've been up and down the highways for years, All these little towns look the same after a while.
The funniest story, when he was wrestling Teddy the Tank. Teddy is 475 pounds of muscle. Marlon and him are outside the ring, scrapping it up. And here comes this little 4'8" woman, starts beating him up, saying, leave my son alone. You couldn't imagine that this gigantic man come out of that little woman, 30 years earlier. And nobody knew who she was. She said, stop hitting him, you're hurting him.
Over the next couple of years, Tiger Khan traveled to many countries and wrestled for various promotions. The country that left the biggest impression was Saudi Arabia.
What's about your experiences in Saudi Arabia? That was interesting.
Saudi Arabia was a great experience. It was when I said to myself, I've made it. The promoters paid for, everything, meals, hotels, airfare, entertainment, everything across the board. But the defining moment was we were sitting at a sheikh's house, and this guy had to be one of the richest guys in Saudi Arabia. As a matter of fact, I think he was the owner of all the intercontinental hotels across the world. So we're sitting there, and we're sitting on the floor, and there's fish and rice all over. And everybody, all these sheikhs, all these guys are sitting down there eating, rice and fish, and I'm not accustomed to sitting like that, and my legs started hurting me, so they had to bring a chair for me to sit down. Because, sitting on your feet is nice, it looks good, but after 10 minutes, it start cramping up, which is exactly what happened to me. So that was a good experience.
And there were no women in the audience. Tell me about the cultural things.
Oh, yeah. Well, going in there, a good friend of ours, his name is Jeff, he kind of briefed me on the do's and don'ts, and he said, you got to be on your best behavior, and you can't wear a cross. But the thing that really, really let me know that I wasn't in Brooklyn anymore was when I signed out the what do you call the welcome to Saudi Arabia card, the
declarations.
Yeah, sign your declaration form, and there was a big stamp on the top. It says "Death to Drug Traffickers." So that let me know I was in a different place, Ow. I was right.
So what was it like? Right, you were wrestling in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was a cool deal because what we had was we had a setup where we had 5 shows on 5 consecutive days from Monday through Friday, and it was airing on live TV across Saudi Arabia. So we were on live. It was like a big event. We were there for an entire week. And
No mess ups.
no, well, we're pros.
Yeah.
And we wrestled in a stadium. It was I think the capacity was like 8,000, but every night it grew. And we started at like 2,500 and it grew. But the thing, when you really looked into the audience, I didn't realize it at first, but you really didn't realize it until you started really looking into the audience, and it was only men. Only men. There wasn't a woman to be found. And on the street, when you walk through the street, no women. And if you did see a woman, she was covered up from head to toe. All you could see was her eyes. And they're not allowed to look at you in the eyes. And they're not allowed to laugh. And they're not allowed to do very much.
Yeah.
So, it can't be easy being a woman in that country.
Tell us a little about Trinidad. You have a funny story. You came in, your parents are from Trinidad, and you came out as the so-called hero face.
Right.
What happened?
Right. Well, wrestling has always been so predictable, and I try to break tradition. And they wanted me to go as the hometown boy gone bad. So I go into the stadium and I start out, my name is Tiger Khan. For the past 8 years I've been all over the world. Tonight I'm here in Trinidad, and they're clapping. I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, my mother and father grew up right over the hill, and they're all clapping, yeah, hometown boy. They're all excited. I'm like, yeah, I've been all over the world, and tonight I'm here in Trinidad. So they're clapping. I said, I got to tell you, this is the dirtiest piss hole of a country I've ever been in my life. They went nuts. They started throwing everything from hamburgers to hot dogs. And I said, you people are the most disgusting piss drinkers I've ever seen. And that was it. The ring announcer, who was actually the promoter, grabbed the mic from me, and I had the rest of his spiel I couldn't get out. He's like, no, stop, you're gonna kill you, So, that was my experience over there.
Take it.
Your son is 29 now. He's been doing this for 10 years. He's toured all over the world: England, Saudi Arabia, Trinidad, etc., Canada, etc. He's had WWF tryouts. He's wrestled Jerry Lawler, etc., etc. But when all is said and done, financially, it's difficult. For all intents and purposes, you're supporting him. How much longer do you give this career choice? It's a hard road.
Well, I don't look at it as an investment or anything like that. I grew up very poor, hungry, not naked, but my father was a cop, taught me, he bought everything for me, shoes and clothing, make sure that I went to school. I went to high school. I had 2 years of college back home, but we just didn't have the money to travel overseas to go to a university or something. My wife, father, he had money. He was an engineer, building roads, and we support him. We give him everything. I'm used to that. As soon as she joined, she got married to me. We lived in a very small place, one room, one small bed. From there we kept on going. So nothing bothers her, so she can do it up, she don't care. As long as the kids got what they want, she don't mind, she don't care about anybody else. I don't care about anybody else either. But it don't bother us. It don't bother any one of us.
What do you tell your son when his career's over, as far as choices, options? Wrestling is a young man's game. When he makes it, he'll already be in his 30s. You're looking at a 10-year run, and what does he do the rest of his life?
That is something to think about. And if he had listened to what I told him to finish, he had 2 more years of college. He should have finished college. I didn't have the opportunity. My other kids had the opportunity. I have one son and another daughter that finished college. One is still going to, she's going to college now after she got married. And, they're very well educated. My sister, brother, everybody. Her sister, we all believe in education, but if he didn't want to take it and he just want to indulge himself in this sort of sport, let him do it. I support him.
You're a very close family. You know, I know you personally. If or when he makes it in the WWF, he'll be on the road 200, 250 days a year. How do you react to that?
As long as we hear from him, not me personally, my wife. That's his mother. As long as the mother hears from him, as long as she's happy, I'm happy. But I know what it takes to be, away from my family. I was away for a long time from my family. And he's a man. He's male. Male usually leave the flock and go on their own. But the mother is always looking out for her young ones. And that is what she does. She misses him a lot if he's in Canada, but he calls her like any other country he goes to. He calls you regularly, so she's okay, and I can tell because you can see the change in her face. If I'm outside, sometimes I'm sleeping or so, and when I wake up and I see her face, you can see the cherry look in her face. I know she spoke to him. Then she'll tell me, she'll spill her guts out and tell me everything that he said. But so be it.
What do you want for him? What goals? What's your dream for him?
Well, my dream for him was to become something, like a professional, maybe a lawyer, doctor, like he was trying. When he was going to school, he was doing marine biology. I thought he would have been more involved in science. What I would like for him. No, he makes his choice. He made his choice. He can stick to it.
We like him to get his dream now, because Evan, that he's in that for a long time.
Tiger Khan is more than just a wrestler. He's one of my closest friends, and Tiger is an interesting guy. Tiger meditates. Tiger studies motivational speakers. Tiger also has gone to that next level beyond many of the local indie guys. He's headlined for the Hearts, the legendary Hearts. He's been in the dungeon, in the Hart family dungeon that Chris Benoit and all these great workers have come out of. He's main evented Trinidad and England and Saudi Arabia. So wrestling, in a sense, has taken another tough local street kid all around the world, made him a bigger person, a better person. Meditation and motivational speakers have influenced you. I know it's had a profound effect on you.
Yeah, I have to say, these are other things that I don't want to keep on going back, but it's the truth. I say everything in life is a circle and you go back to it. These are things that my father always encouraged me to get into, and I think him being older realized that if I would just relax and let it come to me, that it would have a positive influence on my life, and that's when I started adopting those beliefs and traditions, just relaxing and letting things come to you, not forcing your way into it.
I've followed your career for a long time, and I've seen all the ups and downs, and you've been on world tours, you've main evented against legends like Jerry Lawler, you've headlined territories like Stampede, which is a legendary territory, but at the same time the big break hasn't come. How do you handle the frustration, and how do you keep the drive going?
Well, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Evan. Completely honest. And you said you've been with me through the ups and downs. You've done more than that. You have gotten me through the ups and downs, as well as my mother and father and my friend Mike Matarazzo. And as far as me taking this road, I think this was the perfect road for me to take because it put everything really in perspective. The spirituality is a part of it. Spirituality, that's a part of it, and the ups and downs, that's another part of it. But when I get down to it, when I look back in my life and I say, okay, am I frustrated? No, I'm not frustrated at all because I know it's coming to me. Once I stop forcing it, it flows so naturally, and it's come to me, and I really need to stop thinking about myself and me being a wrestler and start seeing that everybody's put here with their work in their heart. Wrestling is my work. But it's more than that. I have to bring certain things to people's lives. Evan, I bring something to his life. Mike, I bring something to his life. And my mother and father, I bring something to their life. And that is my purpose. And this is what I needed to go this route, this long route. As long as it may seem, I needed to go this route before I go on my next journey to realize this.
We have our differences as far as philosophies. I'm the kind of guy, I'm always networking. I'm always, trying to get my stuff out to different people. Tiger believes it's going to come to you. You put out enough positive energy, it will come. And I hope he's right. I hope for his sake I'm wrong and he's right. I'm always like, hey, Tiger man, why don't you send this tape to so-and-so and so-and-so? They know I'm here. If they want me, they'll call me. I'm a little more aggressive on that end, but he's had a great career so far. He's basically welcome all around the world, but his dream is WWE. So I'm hoping it'll come off for him.
In 2000, Tiger Khan joined Stampede Wrestling in Canada. It is one of the most famous and long-running pro wrestling groups in the world, owned by the famous Hart family of Calgary. Tiger quickly rose to the top. He was named the promotion's champion and held the title for the latter part of 2002. When he returned to the U.S., Tiger Khan never really got back on track. Tiger Khan wrestled with substance abuse while trying to find a job in the normal workaday world. He achieved a small success. Jeff Archer, in his essay, The Universal Man, remembered that Tiger Khan was drug and alcohol free for the first time in years. They made plans for him to come to Jeff's house the following Sunday and spend the entire day discussing politics and the possibility of him starting to write. Everything was fine. He enjoyed living in Anaheim, albeit for only a week, and his thoughts were on creating a career. He was clean, sober, and happy. A few years after they spoke, he was dead.
This may be the hardest thing I've ever had to write. On Tuesday, June 27th, I checked my messages and heard the words I'll never forget. Evan, this is Lou, Falcon. I'm sorry, but I don't know any other way to say this, so I'll just go ahead and say it. Marlon's dead. They found his body in California. Call me. Feeling like I had been punched in the face, I wanted to dismiss it as just an internet rumor. Hey, hadn't Scott Steiner died, and Paul Orndorff and Billy Graham before him? Hell, even Paul McCartney was dead for a while back when I was a kid. And wasn't there at least one other wrestler using the moniker Tiger Khan? I wasn't going to allow this to be reality. I just wasn't. Not my friend Tiger. Not the guy I traveled with up and down those many New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania highways all those years as he pursued his dream. Not my buddy who I flew 3,000 miles with to a show in California. Not my little brother who I roamed the streets of Tijuana, Mexico with at 3 a.m. on one of the countless evenings we enjoyed together. Not the rising star I proudly watched wrestle Jerry Lawler and Little Guido and Sabu and oh so many others. So instead of dealing with a situation I just couldn't handle, I laid down on my bed and took a nap that felt like the sleep of the damned. When I got up, I felt more tired than before. The horror of that call now hit me. Was Marlon dead? Should I call Lou right now? I pondered for what felt like the longest time. No, I said to myself, dreading a confirmation. I called journalist Jeff Archer, who was also close to Tiger and who spoke with him regularly. At age 57, Jeff was a much older father figure to him. He helped guide Marlon through the tough times in his life, many of which involved his trying to make the transition from wrestling to the real world. For in the past few years, Tiger had grown disenchanted with a business that provided him with too many lies, too many bounced checks, and far too many disappointments. The WWE dark match tryout at the Meadowlands may have been the last straw. So close, but yet so far. Right there in the dressing room, in their ring, 16,000 fans. After that, his enthusiasm in the sport was almost cyclical. A few months of vowing to make it, juggling tours around the world, and meaningless indie shots, but with even longer gaps where he didn't want to be bothered. Even though we all knew he wasn't cut out to be a 9-to-5er, Tiger just moved to California in search of a job outside of wrestling. Residing a mere hour from Jeff, I thought that maybe he had heard something, while hoping against hope that he hadn't. Relaying the message to him, he told me the San Diego News had offered nothing on Tiger, but then he uttered the command I simply didn't want to hear. Of course you have to call the guy back. Call him now. But what if it were true? How could I handle this? Hadn't we shared each other's dreams on those long road trips? Wasn't I going to be a famous writer and Marlon was going to be a star in WWE? When I make it, Evan, I'm going to take you with me. You were always there for me. And I was. Whether it was publicity, small loans, or just keeping him company on a long ride to a show, I never said no to this friend with the brightest of smiles, a passion for life, and a personality that lit up a room. How could I? Bracing myself, I started to dial. I felt my heart race a little faster as my sinuses pounded away. I felt weary as I tried to summon up the strength to talk. Lou, it's Evan. Is it true? And it was. Dead. Marlon's mom had told him herself, the Trinidadian mom I had met so many times, the mother who sat at his local matches and supported a child she loved so much, the mom who had me over their house for Christmas and other parties, the mom who, like myself, was now devastated. Tiger, Marlon, dead. Suddenly, hearing my voice start to break, I tried not to cry. I'm sure the pure shock of it was the only thing that helped me keep my composure. A neighbor had found the body. He had gone to sleep and, like so many other wrestlers before him, simply didn't wake up. It was probably a heart attack. He was 33 years old. My blood pressure must have spiked because I suddenly felt lightheaded. Hell, I knew Marlon partied hard at times. I once traveled hours with him to a show he wrestled on. Driving me all the way back to New York, he informed me that he was leaving right then to Atlanta for a party. Pointing to some pills that would keep him awake, he assured me he'd be fine. But the last time I saw him some 2 months earlier in Manhattan, he wasn't fine. Looking fat and bloated, I felt alarmed as that just wasn't him. I asked Jeff to stay on top of him, but he had sounded happy recently when we had spoken. I'm ripped, Evan, back in shape. I feel good, he exclaimed in that rapid-fire, life-affirming tone of his. But they had found the body, I reminded myself. This magnificent athlete, my beloved friend, had somehow become the body. His sister called me the next day to discuss arrangements, trying to piece together how this could have happened. We both knew. Like so many of his peers, Tiger had dabbled on and off with steroids. I even had the talk with him. I cycle on and off, he explained, trying to alleviate my concern. He rationalized that he didn't take the kind of doses that killed so many of our wrestling heroes. Hanging up, she said, take care of yourself in a consoling manner. Hell, she was his sister. Shouldn't I be consoling her? And knowing he was living the wrestling lifestyle, shouldn't I have been firmer with him? Wasn't I 13 years older and a teacher by trade? Shouldn't I have been the role model? An odd combination, this tough street kid who loved techno and clubbing, and this old school guy who woke up for work while Marlon was still out from the night before. But on several occasions, he'd say, we're going out drinking. And he laughed that laugh of his. I'm going to get you drunk, Evan. And although I've never, ever been a drinker, how could I not party with my buddy when he hit town again? Inevitably, instead of pulling him away from the table, I'd match him drink for drink. A feeling of guilt suddenly overpowered me. But the whole thing still didn't seem real. I thought back to how many times we wouldn't see each other for months, and I'd look forward to hanging out with him. He'd give me a big hug and tell me how much he'd miss me, and he'd always say, I love you, man. And now a cremation was scheduled. Gone, truly, totally gone off the very face of this earth. Sitting on my beaten old couch with my face in my hands, my body suddenly felt out of control. Bent over, I started rocking back and forth, and the tears started to pour. Hearing sobs that sounded far away, I realized they were my own. All those dreams of his lost. It suddenly hit me that I had work to do. Knowing that wrestling was what he had been most passionate about, I didn't want his career to get short shrift. Rushing to the computer like a maniac, I began furiously writing a press release on his passing. I read it again and again, almost not wanting to send it out because this would somehow make it final. It is with the utmost sadness that I must announce that the body of my longtime friend Tiger Khan, Marlon Cowkai, was discovered in California recently. A former main eventer for the legendary Calgary Stampede promotion, this veteran was a world traveler, having appeared in Trinidad, England, Wales, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, the U.S., and a variety of other stops. With his classic foreign heel gimmick, he faced such legends as Jerry Lawler, King Kong Bundy, and Sabu. I am providing these career highlights and interviews I have of him for those who want to cover his tragic passing in greater detail. Anyone desiring to reprint the materials can do so with my permission and appreciation. I thank you in advance for honoring a good human being who devoted most of his life to professional wrestling. My condolences to his many friends, fans, and family. Sending it out to my huge media and email list, I hoped it would get him the press he deserved. Oddly, it felt like the old days with me trying to garner my friends some good ink. And it did. The floodgates opened, posted everywhere. The phone calls and emails didn't stop for days. Media from Canada called me for interviews about him. Yes, Tiger Khan was now finally over in a big way. How terribly sad. Tiger was not only a friend, but one of my heroes. He would fearlessly get in the ring with guys twice his size. And when a monster like Typhoon picked him up over his head and threw him over the top rope several feet through a table below, I just cringed. But Marlon would just shrug it off. Hell, he loved the rush. And flying into dangerous exotic lands to wrestle, he ultimately flew out having experiences few could ever share. One of Tiger's favorite stories was of going to a McDonald's on a Middle Eastern tour with a crew of wrestlers. The next night they couldn't find the very same restaurant. You see, terrorists had blown the joint up right after they'd been in there. Yes, Tiger Khan lived on the edge. He probably packed more into his 33 years than most people ever do in double or even triple that time on Earth. But like so many wrestlers before him, and most likely after, he treated his body like a chemistry set. And in the end, it was his downfall. Tiger Khan dead at 33. To the day I die, I'll always love you like a brother, Marlon, and I'll never stop missing you. But damn it, I thought you were smarter than this. I thought you were smarter.
The independent wrestling community came together to remember Tiger Khan, warts and all, and a heartfelt broadcast on Legends TV, hosted by Evan Ginzburg.
I mean, this is a guy that would take his shirt off his back. He was humble. He was great. He was a great family man. He loved his parents. And I remember when I learned of his death. And it was devastating. I needed to confirm it with you. Yeah. And then learning upon his death, I thought about the next person, his mother. I said, oh my God, his mother, what could she be going through? And I just thought of all about his friends and everything and all the dreams and ambitions that he spoke about. And it's just tragic. It is one tragic thing. Sometimes I say life really sucks sometimes.
Yeah, when you see a movie, they always put a positive spin, but it's very hard to put a positive spin on this.
He was like a practical joker behind the scenes, but when he stepped through that doorway to go to the ring, he was all business. He took it very serious. He, had a lot of pride in his work, and every time when he was done, he wanted to make sure he had the best match.
I remember Tiger Khan, the handshake and the smile, the presence of sincerity, the absence of beguile. He made a wish to be a star. He gave it all he had. But now he's gone at 33, and all of us are sad. So many dreams get trampled down that road that never ends, but Marlon is beloved by his family and his friends. I remember Tiger Khan, the handshake and the smile, the presence of sincerity, the absence of beguile.
It is fitting, and perhaps appropriate, that we give the final words in this remembrance to Tiger Khan.
Like this, I got into this business for a reason. It was to entertain, and I've strayed off that path sometimes, but I've always managed to get back on it. I can do whatever needs to be done, but at this point, like I told you before, I'm just at the point where I'm going to do what I enjoy doing and do what I was put here to do. Mm-hmm. And that's, those things, when I get up there and my heart's pounding, that tells me I'm not in the right place. So I stay to the mat, I stay to the ground, and I stay with the microphone in hand. I initially got into this from my mother and father. And so that's what keeps me going. That's what kept me going. I look back at all the toughest times in my life, the time when we had to wrestle 30 days in a row in Calgary, and I say, what got me through that time? And it was my mother and father. And, and now it's my two buddies, and that's what motivates me. These four people who've been so instrumental. When I get in there, I'm not getting in for me. Because me, I'm content sitting at a club, sipping a drink. I do it for these four people. And this is my job. It doesn't make me better or worse than anyone. This is my job. But along with my job comes, what I bring to these four people. And that's basically what it is, and that'll keep me going. So when I look at it like that, it's no problem.
I want ringside seats at the Garden.
No problem, buddy. Whatever you want, whatever you need. Dwayne, I just have to say that panning down from that picture to me, if anybody's watching this, they're probably going to think I'm some kind of egomaniac. This is my parents' house, and that's their picture. It wasn't my idea.
From the associate producer of The Wrestler, Evan Ginzburg, comes Wrestling Then and Now.
What? I think you look better with the mask on!
Learn the super secret backstage moves of professional wrestlers.
You know, he knows all those moves and can do everything, right? But
Innovative ways of dealing with sexual harassment.
But I actually did make contact on his nuts, and it did hurt.
Ask yourself, what the hell is wrong with these people? Watch Saturday morning cartoons with Nikolai Volkoff.
What are you doing here, Nikolai?
Yeah, save this child. That's the best one, too.
Amazing likeness there.
Good looking guy.
Hear the wisdom of Killer Walter Kowalski.
Think you become, the feel you become, or to say you become. Never ever be derogatory about yourself. Feel down, take the upper stand. I am Superman. I am the greatest. I am perfect.
It's a time capsule of a film. Wrestling Then and Now. Streaming to your computer, to your phone, to your TV. Download now.